supposed to go up to 119 over the next 4 to 6 days.
Have you seen all these guys out on their equipment? All over the place.
And their jackets they have
I think
on.
it should be just like the snowbird season. That's your construction season. None of this only in the middle of
We
summer,
didn't always do it this way, that's for sure.
because this is nasty. I mean, those people look like they're gonna pass out. And I know they have water and they have rules,
But still,
that's crazy. I think the major projects like that should be done not in the heat. Spring or fall or winter, but
I don't know who schedules this stuff. See, this is like they were partially.
See, this is how we
the
talk
bridge
about stuff.
situation, the one and the underpass and all of that. We knew in 2013, 2012, that both those places needed to have work done, that they were very rapidly becoming unstable.
Or these bridges.
Yeah, it'd be 68th Street.
Oh,
yeah.
And then the underpass on
Oh, well,
Drinkwater.
You know, the issue for me about that is that they use emergency funds to pay for it. Comes out of the bond. So they say that we vote for these specific items that we are assured are going to get funded. But if they have to use the money for emergency, they take it out, because they did. They did that for 68th Street.
Well, you couldn't go down 68th Street much longer.
Well,
I know where that was.
It was something worthy of taking it for emergency.
But the point is do you read the article about how it was neglected, ignored, and ADOT told and told and told and told and told and reminded?
That's my point,
And
So
they
they
ignored,
should've-
ignored?
yes.
That's
So they
abusive.
should have taken care of it.
That's,
Now, is this something we should be talking when the rest of the people are
I don't
here?
care.
I don't know. You guys gonna be
I'm
talking,
open to discussing that right now.
Ted, let's.
if anybody comes in, they can jump in. I'm not gonna be formal tonight.
Oh, that bridge, we did know that the bridge was deteriorating. It wasn't a secret, and it wasn't being ignored.
It was, if you knew it was bad, you ignored it
Well,
all those years.
from,
How long have you been on the bond committee? Let's start there.
I formed the bond committee,
You formed it, okay.
yes.
And how long ago was that?
It was this spring.
This spring?
It was
He's
April
lived here a
or May.
long time.
April or May, we formed the protocol.
This spring you formed the bond committee. But we've had bond committees in the past.
Yeah, they're all different.
So,
Different ballot initiatives.
what?
Different ballot initiatives,
Okay,
different,
so it's
different
just
groups
this,
of support.
this one that you wasn't like 50 years
Different
ago.
people.
Hello.
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 So, hi there.
Hello.
Hi.
Where would you like to sit? Here?
Yeah, I'd love to, or I can sit out here. No, I
No,
can
no, no.
sit out here, that way I can move around and,
No,
yeah,
no, take this seat.
you sure?
Sure, I can move, it's no problem.
All
We've
right.
just been discussing, there are 2 meetings besides ours today. And I got a hunch that everybody has had those 2 meetings, because one has to do with the
Waterfront.
waterfront.
Oh, South Bridge,
Yeah,
there's a lot of people there.
Yeah, that's
We
what
just
I-
came from the
we
planning.
just, yeah, we just
committee.
came from there, so.
That's what I figured.
How's it doing?
We hadn't heard that yet, we left right before.
Yeah, South Bridge hadn't started yet.
Yeah.
Okay. And how long is it gonna run till?
Until they're done.
Midnight,
If they've got a
yay.
lot of people there, they'll, gonna wanna answer questions. No guessing game.
My guess is they'll be 8 o'clock. They'll be out. I have a sense that there's more support for it than opposition to it, just by looking around the room. Now, I may have guessed that completely inaccurately.
If I was worried about it, I'd be there. I'm not worried about it because I know what the project is about. But I've told people, you go get your answers.
What do you think about the project? Do you like it or do you dislike it?
I haven't heard about it yet.
I have no
I
problem.
oppose to the height.
The,
And if we're
the
going to
height
have
down
height,
here is an issue.
Yeah.
At South Bridge,
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
anywhere.
that's why the people in the really tall condos.
The waterfront?
The waterfront,
Uh-huh.
they're against it because the height's gonna
Well, of
block
course, I
out.
got here first. My view counts more than yours.
Well, you know, they're sold a view,
Yes, they are.
and they pay buku bucks, just like at, what's the thing with the hanging gardens? Optima. Optima, they were sold those views, and then right across the street, they go and build that thing, whatever it is. Starts with an M, and blocks out their mountain. I'm just like, man, I would be livid. And I hope they got cash back for that and upgraded, because man, that would just irk me.
Part of the problem we face, really, quite frankly, is that Scottsdale needed to decide a long, long time ago that we were either gonna be a little town or we were gonna be a growing
We
town.
did decide that.
And that didn't,
I think my neighbors are moving.
you know,
It didn't happen.
It was, they ignored.
The
They
thing
ignored
thing
the
about it is, we
citizens.
were told when the Twin Towers went in, that there would be no tall buildings south of the canal. Well, it turned out to be BS.
That's a whole,
Barrel of monkeys.
whole barrel of monkeys.
Yes.
Hi, Copper.
How are you?
I'm
That
well.
is-
Thank you for being here tonight.
Hi, how are you?
Copper's a member of our steering committee.
that is,
Hello, Copper.
that all went out the window.
Nancy, do you want a formal presentation or do you want more of a question and
If
answer?
this is gonna be it, let's just do,
Okay.
we don't have to be formal.
We were led to believe that there would be additional folks coming from North Scottsdale
Okay.
in order to get some questions asked and answered.
There, that's cool.
And so, we're delighted to just kind of hang loose for a while.
Oh, give us 10 more minutes.
7 o'clock
Oh, yeah.
is our
Three
normal.
person call you.
Oh, boy, got a lot.
We have
Major.
to read that simple banana bread. Oh, it's terrible.
Thank you.
Hello, how are you?
Good day, how are you?
You're very good, sir.
Good for you.
How are you?
We're signing in here or over there?
Go good.
This over there.
Yeah,
if
they're
you have any
doing
questions.
good.
I need to get that procedure done on this knee.
Are you gonna have the cool leaf?
Yeah.
Oh, good for you.
What's that?
Cool leaf? That's when they inject radio frequency into the knees and it destroys the nerve and you can still be bone on bone, but you don't have the pain until those nerves grow back.
Whoa.
And it takes
How
about,
exciting.
like,
Let's
I'll
not
have to
talk
say, I went in there with the 10 and I left there with the 0 and I have been 0 ever since.
Wow.
As far
How
as the
long has
cool
it
leaf.
held up for you, may I
That's
ask?
lovely.
How long? How long has it been since you had it?
A year, maybe a little longer,
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
Oh,
And at
my.
that time, Medicare paid for it. I learned about this when we were in Branson. And Medicare paid for it at that time. Then I heard they quit paying for it, even when you have to have it redone. And now I understand they're paying for it again.
Well, I'm
depending
gonna
on the
check that
doctor.
out.
Is Medicare gonna pay for yours?
What I just said, I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, because what you do when
I
you
need to
go
talk to you
in,
about that whole thing.
they give you a shot in your knee, and you have to walk all day. And every hour record your pain, every hour record your
I
pain.
don't know that.
And then, because that helps qualify for them to know that you really need it.
Oh, my doctor knows.
You're right, it shouldn't be very hard.
So, but, I mean,
Well,
as far
bone
as the
on bone
surgery.
pain is,
Yeah.
And right now, my knee is bone on bone, and I hear it kicking and everything, but there's no pain in it.
Huh.
That just sounds
So
terrible.
you just have to outlive it.
I could, because I don't want to go in and have surgery at my age.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Oh, yeah, it sounds pretty reasonable.
Yep.
That can last that long.
I'll call you.
And then I pay to go to for an MRI and go to a doctor for him to tell me I'm getting old. I mean, I could have told him that.
So, when you guys start, when the panel starts, can you guys tell us who you are and?
Oh, we will, we'd be happy to.
Because I'm like, I
Who are
know
those strangers?
There's
that
some
you know?
banana bread back there if
Seven
anybody
o'clock,
would
we're
like
kinda all
some,
over the
fresh
place.
out of the freezer. I bought a bunch
He
of
likes to
bananas
record
today to
everything.
make more banana bread, and I so I'm taking everything out of the freezer to make it fresh now. Oh, there he is. You don't have any eggs and
And I
things to
go out and do
discuss?
yard work.
All of us women.
No
Three
sound.
surgeries on the same this. And I'm waiting, I'm about to have my third. So, I'm listening to you.
No, well,
I'm
same
feeling-
with your commission, we're still
Well,
project.
yeah.
We're still talking on that. Our, wow.
I'm trying to put them off.
11, 12, so I don't get up, which I should, because I was raised on
If
that.
I take him to the left, it's all good, he can cancel that.
Look on.
You know, the problem I have is I wait too much. If I get a
Oh,
knee
just one of
replacement,
our
I'm
colleagues
at
in
risk
Rose, that is.
of the,
You work with
you know, the
I do,
microfractures
yes.
taking place.
So tell
Check out this coolie.
I'm going, I was listening to
I
you.
will, I will, absolutely.
LIF.com.
Oh, yeah,
And then.
People want different outfits.
Yeah.
Gotta coordinate.
That's
It's-
fine.
I have eyeglass envy of that man.
Oh, I do too. Yeah. Spectacle.
I'm happy to come in and meet with John and.
At least we're all on the same page.
Talk about
I had a friend that called in the other day, she was out shopping and there were all these brightly colored shirts for sale. And she was at Steinmart, so she texted him and said, do you need any new shirts? And he wrote back,
He and I work well together.
Mr. Rose does not shop at Steinmart. Well, you know, his are from a very specific
Taylor.
clothier, yeah.
You got Walmart.
There you go, yeah. Target.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, we like to call them Martin K.
Seville Row is not doing so well anymore in England.
Have you been over there recently again?
No, but
Oh, I
there's a
forgot
special
the paperwork.
presentation.
I had it set up there this morning, but that's,
Oh, you want another copy?
oh, that's okay, because
Okay.
I know they cost you quite a bit.
Okay. Oh, what, no, nothing. I just didn't
Because
come.
suits have gone out of style.
You don't want.
Yes, I know.
Sadly.
Yes.
We were going through old pictures at our house. My mother's aunt and uncle moved to San Francisco in 1935. And so they have all these pictures of the city and my mother went to visit them and they went all up and down the Pacific Coast Highway and a restaurant that's not there any longer in Malibu, and just a variety of things. And I said, these have got to be something that even a historical society would be interested in. But what I really noticed is whether all the people just walking on the street or at the garden or at the observatory or anywhere they went, the women were all dressed well, the men had on suits. I mean, it wasn't that you put on your jeans and your prettiest t-shirt and
It's
went,
called a morning suit.
yeah.
For morning. And then you have your afternoon. And remember all the photos with all the hats?
Oh, yes.
Everybody had a hat?
I miss those days. Speaking of hats, my colleague Miss Dana, close in the background over there. You wanna pull a chair out of
So
here?
does she happen to have a photo of the bath in San Francisco?
I don't know if she does or not. I will look.
It's it no longer exists.
Oh, no.
It was right on the point, and it was a big, huge, like, swimming pool that actually flowed in and out. And of course, I'm sure it's all our deco-ish.
Oh, I'm sure. I'll have to check. She's been doing the going through.
I passed out brochures.
So did,
I saw that comment in like 30 seconds.
Anybody here want me to pass them out?
well, since everybody, there's a big hunk at the front table over there, so you wanna pass them out? Sure. Probably a good idea. Then we pass out our brochures.
Absolutely.
Follow along.
Nancy.
She does a lot of.
Hey, come here a second.
Brochure? Hi there.
Not to be rude, but can you tell them to like scoot this, maybe a hair this way, otherwise they're blocking the presenters. Otherwise I'll have to move the table.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. And I know nothing about taping.
Is that better?
Alexis Angle.
Pardon me? When you're taping this.
You know, I don't think we're mailing the brochures per se.
I'm
The
good.
brochures, we'll be mailing
Yeah.
stuff.
Something similar.
You guys are
to
fine.
We're mailing something.
This is,
Well, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't gonna get too.
well, the good news, the good thing about this particular one is it really has every single thing listed on the inside. If you open up
can't
to,
read it right now.
don't have your glasses. Take it out. You'll see
I
that
thought
they're all
it would be,
listed
I thought
in
it
the
would be
center.
10 forever.
Sitting right there.
Yep.
All right.
Reading glasses are so.
I'm gonna let you guys go ahead and
It'd be
make
better
introduce
on the-
yourselves. And we can start a discussion. If anybody has any questions, I'm not gonna make them go through a formal routine.
All right.
Kick it off here, and if anybody else comes in, they can jump in.
All right, I will let my colleagues introduce themselves. I'm Paula Sturgeon. I am the chair, but really we function as co-chairs of the For the Best Scottsdale Political Action Committee. We came together and were created for the purpose of educating our fellow citizens and encouraging the passage of the bonds. The 3 bond questions that will be a part of a mail-in ballot due back in the election in early November. So I'll answer more as we go along.
And I'm Copper Phillips, one of the task force bond PAC members.
I'm Dana Close, and I'm one of the co-chairs as well.
All right, and in the back, and who helped set up?
I'm Mike Norton, I'm one of the co-chair. Paula and I signed the original documents to create.
We did. We did. And also, just to let you know, staff support and the treasurer of our PAC. Want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Mary Turner, the treasurer of the PAC and part of the committee, and here to do whatever it needs. So kind of be in the background here tonight.
So basically, let me just give you a little bit of an overview. It's been 20 years since the city of Scottsdale passed a full bond package. We've had a couple of little things here and there, but never as broad brush and sweeping a bond proposal as we have before us now. Not in the last 20 years. The bond proposal that is before you is a result of a lot of work by all the members of our city council and by members of neighborhood associations, much like yours, open houses where there was input from members of the community. Finally, some good old-fashioned horse trading went on. Because we knew that there was this many needs and there was never going to be this much money. So we had to get it down a little bit. And the council worked with the priorities set by the citizens and by input from their staff and came up with a final number for the grand total of the bonds. And that final number, the grand total is,
Like
319 million. I was gonna say it wrong, so I was looking over there for my cohort. He's got banana bread. He's happy.
Oh,
So-
thank you.
$319 million divided among 3 bond packages. Now that's where some horse trading came in. There was some folks on the city council that wanted just one bond question with all of it listed, either a yay or a nay, up or down. And there were some said, nope, we need to have 7 different bond questions. Well, the result you get is 3 bond questions. Based, and they're grouped as a familial sort of group. First, bond question number 1 deals with parks, recreations, and the very thing we're sitting in, senior services. In that bond, there is $112.6 million for 14 projects. Next question is community spaces and infrastructure. $112.3 million for 20 projects. And finally, question number 3, public safety and technology, $94.1 million for 24 specific projects. And on a quick look at this paper, you go, whoa, 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 public safety? How come they're at the end of the line? Well, fortunately, in a couple of the other attempts to pass more sweeping bonds, there were bonds passed to support public safety. So they are not as far behind as some of the other issues are. The projects are listed here in this brochure. They are listed on the city website, but when you get your ballot, they will not be listed. They will list question 1, question 2, and question 3. So you'll have to vote yes 3 times.
Or no, 3 times.
Or a little bit of all.
Or a little bit of it all. The good news is these bonds, because of the circle of expiring bonds, these bonds, when they're implemented, will not adjust our secondary property tax rates at all. There is a, retiring bonds and new bonds, and we can't borrow, realistically, the whole amount at once. We wouldn't want to, frankly. The whole point is to have a kind of rolling account that we can draw from to do the next available project. The projects are not shovel-ready, if you will. The projects still have to be fully investigated, fully drawn up, gone through all of the different commissions and the like within the city, and no doubt minor tweaking will happen along the way. So the projects are not shovel ready. Right. That's basically the plan. 3 bonds, 3 different areas listed before you. It does not alter. Now, let me go back to this property tax thing. Property taxes may change. There are 2 kinds of property tax. Everybody aware of that? There's a primary tax and there's a secondary tax. The primary tax, none of us are capable of speaking on because we don't have anything to do with it. That's handled by some other series of folks making decisions. We honestly don't really control the secondary, but we can speak to it, of course. The secondary property tax is where you pay off the city obligation in bonds. Municipal bond rates are at historically low interest rates right now. The ability to sell municipal bonds is a tool that is so valuable to cities to be able to fund projects. It allows us to keep property taxes low, fees low, other sales tax low. We have, for where we live, we have really low tax and other fee rates in this city. It's important that we understand that. If we don't have the ability to sell bonds, inevitably, when something has to be paid for, where's it gonna come from? So that's kind of the background there. Am I missing anything, friends and colleagues?
Got it, here's a question.
Question.
Will the interest rate be locked in? Because right now we're at all-time lows on interest rate.
I can answer that question. I've been working very closely with Jeff Nichols, the city treasurer, and he shared a lot of information with me through public records. And he also was able to discuss with me how the city approaches the issuance of additional bonds. The city doesn't sell a bond for $40 million to fund a specific project. It sells a series of different bonds, each of which comes due over the life of the project. So there might be 20 different bonds sold for one project, each of which comes due in a different year. The interest rate for each of those sub-bonds, the subsection of the bond for a project, is fixed by the open market. And right now, long-term rates are cheaper than short-term rates. In fact, some long-term rates are negative, which is just astonishing. But I wouldn't count on that taking place, because part of the concept of a tax-free municipal bond is your yield isn't taxed, and if there's no yield, I don't know where that all goes. But the longest portion of the bond will see lower rates right now, assuming the market holds the way it is. So if there are 20 bonds for a 20-year project, 20-year payoff, there'll be a yield on each one of those bonds, and they'll be a little bit higher for the shorter term, and they'll be lower for the longer term. But yes, they are all fixed. So we're locking in right now at the lowest interest rate level that's been available in the last 2 decades at least.
So they're gonna be locked in
Yes. Yeah, they're all
for
locked.
the whole term?
When they're issued.
When they are issued,
When
you
they're-
lock them in for the
When
term.
we draw them.
It's like a
Okay,
mortgage.
so they're
It's
not,
like a
so
mortgage.
if you don't, make the bond, for that particular amount until 10 years out, then it'll be that rate.
Right.
It'll be a rate that's based on a 10-year return. Right.
Oh.
So if somebody's looking at bond, they say, I want to invest my money for 10 years.
So are you gonna issue them, you said you were gonna issue them.
Well, I'm not
Well,
going to
not
issue
you,
them.
but I
Okay.
mean, the
But,
powers that be will be
yes.
issuing them in increments.
uh-huh.
So if that's the case, are they all locked in now for?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, every bond that we sell, the interest rate is locked.
okay.
There are no floating rate bonds.
So we weren't gonna wait until 10 years and get a higher rate or a lower rate?
I don't think that's what she's asking. If we sell bonds next week, it's whatever the prevailing rate is, that's
Correct.
locked in.
Correct,
If we sell them next year, it's whatever the prevailing rate is at that time, that's
Exactly.
locked in.
exactly.
Just like the
So it
mortgage.
isn't locked in when we vote?
No.
Not long.
It's
No,
locked
no.
in when they're sold.
No.
It's when
So
they're
whatever the
sold?
prevailing rate is when they're sold, and as Mike said, just like on a house mortgage, typically you've got a 15-year mortgage or a 30-year
30
mortgage.
or 6, yeah.
And it's a fixed mortgage. There's the fluctuating rate ones, which most people don't go for now because you just never know what that fluctuation is going to be. So that fixed rate guarantees you that rate for the life of that bond. So, but whatever that rate is when it's sold, that's what your fixed rate will be.
So are we selling the bonds from day one and all the way through? Or what is the term of which the bonds will be sold?
There's a process that has to be followed. What we're doing right now is we are asking voters to authorize our city to sell bonds. It's not a mandate that the city sell bonds. It's not a mandate that we construct a project. We as voters are saying, we authorize you to sell bonds. Now, once that bank of credit has been established, whatever it is that we authorize the city to do, staff will then come forward with priorities in projects, suggestions for which we would all like to see come first. City council will review the priorities. City council undoubtedly is going to say, that's not a bad idea, but move this one forward and this one back, depending on what the crisis level is for each of those bonds. And we were talking about bridges. We've been talking about parking. I would not be surprised if city council said, we need to do something right now to address parking. And so it moves to the front of the project. But we don't know that, okay? What we do know is the city council will then set the priorities, authorize the project, staff will go out, come back with full designs. You'll get community input into the design. And then there'll be the city council process where the project is eventually approved, and at the time it's approved, we then go to bids, all right? When we issue the bids and finally accept the bid, by law, we're required to sell enough bonds to pay the contract. So let's say you're the contractor and you've got a $20 million contract with the city now. The city's gonna go issue $20 million of bonds to fund your contract. They'll hold the cash so that you can be paid, and then construction commences. That's why when Paula said nothing is shovel-ready, nothing can be shovel-ready. We still have to go through those steps of the final design of each project, the approval by the city council, input from the community. You know, if we don't like the way that thing looks, we all get to have another shot at it. We all get to talk some more. And if the city really wants to capture our faith and our trust as voters, I would expect that our future city council will listen to us. You know, we have a lot more power today than we had a couple of years ago. The city council's listening to us. And that's one of the reasons I have a lot of faith and confidence in issuing bonds. I think our government is listening to us. I think we have the ability to elect great people to be city council members in 2020. And really the decisions about what we build and when we spend are going to be made from 2020 forward. We're not going to get these bonds issued, you know, like January 2nd of 2020, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
I have two concerns. One, funding infrastructure using bonds is more costly than direct appropriations due to interest that has to be paid. Could you address this?
You want to take it? You want me to take it? I'll start, and then the financial whiz kid may fill in. It would be nice if we had in the bank enough money to go fix things, build things, directly appropriate. The issue is we do not.
We're what, 800 million in arrears?
Yes, but that's a deceptive number, because that includes things like our future pension payouts and other liabilities. You know, other future liabilities. It's not like somebody sitting there saying, you owe us $800 million. That's unfunded liabilities in the future are sitting there. The nice thing would be to be able to call down to central finance, cut a check, do this. Well, the reality is that this city lived through a difficult recession, has only very recently come out of what it did to us. And now we're dealing with some of the financial hit from several of our vendors moving to the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community. I mean, there are a lot of tax revenue lost when all of those car dealerships moved. A lot of tax revenue. So that really isn't there. And honestly, to carry that money in the bank, that money would be better spent out earning money, reinvested, not just sitting there ready for a check to be written.
Here's my very crude drawing of a very detailed graph and chart that I have that I've obtained from the city. In 2007 through 2008, our tax receipts for the city peaked. We've been climbing at a fairly consistent rate as the city grew. And then we got hit by the recession. And the recession's impact we kind of tend to forget about as the years go by. But receipts dropped every year through 2012. And beginning in 2012, we started to climb back up. And not until 2018 did we get back to the same level of annual city receipts that we had in 2007 and 8. So this big gap, all the way through here, is what put us behind on capital improvement projects. We had enough money with the base to run the city. We had to cut 120 staff.
Yes.
Somebody have that number? I don't want to misstate that.
This is sales tax.
That's
All revenues.
All sources of revenue. like just the general fund sales tax, I think the number is we had like $190 million deficit just in that account. When you stack up all the other sources of revenue, they all look like this, one shape or another. The deficit from the beginning of the trough until we came back, depending on how you measure it, is somewhere between $380 and $520 million. So through this period, we stopped doing capital improvement projects. We had enough money to run the city. We didn't have enough money to fix the bridge. We were talking about 68th Street, okay? Did we know it was broken? Were we hoping it wouldn't break until we had some money? Yeah, we were really just praying that it wouldn't break, right? But eventually you get to the point you can't stop. We have to go do it. So you do pull emergency funds, you pull funds out of some other budget, and you make it work. And the city did a really nice job
Transportation tax.
of keeping things under control. Now we've come back where we have a little bit of room from our operating funds, but we still have this big deferred capital expenditure project that we just carried on the books. There's more stories like the 68th Street Bridge, the Cactus Pool, which is one that we talk about a lot. The Cactus Pool has to be repaired constantly. You know, people say, well, my gosh, we spent so much money on it. Why are we going to knock it down? Because it's still breaking. It's 35 years old. It's old technology. It's got some significant issues. And it takes an incredible amount of money to keep that thing operational.
Why aren't they paying for that then instead of paying for a brand new stadium that's only gonna be used once a year?
The stadium is being paid out of the Tourism Development Fund.
Yeah, that's not out of general operating funds of the city.
Whose funds are that?
It's bed tax, is it not?
Bed tax.
fund. And that's an income generator.
It really
So
is.
we did not have that, and it's, in and of itself, the sales of the tickets doesn't generate that much income, but the hotel, the bed that generates bed tax, the purchasing power of those, like my cousin who comes from Sacramento for spring training, and he drops about $3,000 for the 3 days he's here. Well, that's all sales in Scottsdale, between the arts district, the restaurants, the hotel, so that's a lot of income generated, and the same thing is true of Westport. Does it pay for itself? Never. Does it generate far more income than what it's costing? Absolutely. There again, the amount of money that people spend when they're here for the activities so far offsets what it costs to run the facility. It's, until I looked at the numbers, it was astounding. I had no idea it was that much of an income generator. The stadium,
Oh, the food and
Westworld,
beverage.
it's incredible. So by investing in those kinds of projects, and a lot of the bed tax money is used to pay for that, but by doing the investment to expand and maintain, we actually boost our income generation. So when national events are looked at for the city of Scottsdale that have never been housed in this country before, you know that's going to generate an astronomical amount of income. So is it worth investing a few bucks to bring it up to that condition? I think so. What we're going to get out of it down the road.
Copper, can you talk a little louder when you talk?
I've been teaching for the last and my voice is almost gone.
All right,
So
we'll
I will
help,
try.
we'll help her out. Did you have a second
Yes, I
question?
do. Or a
Our-
statement with a question.
Absolutely.
Okay, mail-in ballots to itemize. It would allow a far better citizen-driven outcome, and it would allow time spent for doing so. Won't be holding anybody up at the polls. Could you please address why it's not going to be itemized and everything is just put into 3 questions?
That's a question better answered by Carolyn and our lawyer, Carolyn Jagger, our city clerk, and the city attorney. But don't cut me off at the knees yet. I've had that done once and it's not fun, so.
That's
No, I am an amputee.
I know,
That was my
that's
job.
why it's rather.
Anyway, it's my body to make the joke of. The point is that the city chose to bundle them for a reason, because they all went together. it is not productive for us to have line by line by line management in a bond. It is further,
I'd like to address what you just said.
all right, I'd love to hear it.
Okay, I went to the citizens, the city council retreat. I was the only one there practically the whole day. It was held out at the air park. And they had a discussion about how they were going to formalize these questions. And the discussion was brought up by Guy Phillips. We have to have one question. And then it was formulated to 3. I don't know how it ever got to the 7 like you stated. But the reason was given was because we don't want people to have it itemized, because then they're going to maybe not pick the ones that we need. So we have to be, we have to take the poison pill, and we have to go through the ones we want and the ones we don't want in order to get anything.
All right.
And I think that's disingenuous and a mistrust.
I'd like to address that too.
Can I answer?
Now, wait a second. She's got a question on the floor, and we're gonna answer that. You wanna answer it,
Well, I'd
Dana?
like to address that too. Having been a participant in the last bond and understanding what passed on the last one, and then being in the Citizens Oversight Committee on that. The voters and I'm not trying to draw that line of the same argument north versus south, but it was the voters in North Scottsdale that sort of voted against the projects in South Scottsdale for the last bond. And so if you'll look in question 1, there's things that address our South Scottsdale Park issues and our South Scottsdale Senior Center, but at the same time add a dog park at Thompson Peak. So the concern is that if it were itemized, that North Scottsdale would get what they want and South Scottsdale wouldn't get what we want. So there was a lot of effort with the public outreach and people getting together to put these together, so there was balance in each one of these things, so that it wasn't going to be that one area of town was gonna get everything and the other area of town not get their needs met. And I think that's really important, because we need things down here. We need our irrigation in our park. It's a valued asset to our city, and we've got to take care of it. We've got to take care of those restrooms. We've got to take care of. So that's my bit on why I really think it's important to keep these grouped this way. I think a lot of people worked hard on doing that to make sure that there was equity from north, central, and south.
Exactly.
Dana, while you're on that, would you expand and talk about what the polling is showing right now?
Well,
With
hang
respect to
on a
support from the
second.
north?
I just wanna see, did that begin to answer your question?
It's an answer, but it's not convincing to me, because I think it could have been done in a manner that would have been holistic in approach to encompass everyone. Those 6 open houses that you had were not really by a lot of people, but the percentages showed that they were. So that was kind of another disingenuous statement that was made to support that these questions were made by the citizens. They were not, in my
Well,
opinion.
in reading that, I attended the open houses. And you can't force someone to take advantage of an opportunity. There were multiple opportunities for people to provide input. If they chose to be disengaged, that was their choice.
Right.
But what was put out was, this was the response from those who provided input.
But that's not the way it's stated.
That's what it was stated when
It's
I read it.
stated to sound like, the greater percentage of this group, which is a small group, does not encompass the entire population of Scottsdale.
And no one ever represented that it did count.
It did, I've seen articles
I guess
where-
I would take exception with that. I've not seen anything.
Okay.
You know, so if you have seen something, please,
Well,
let me see
okay.
it. Let me see if you can find it. You're really good at keeping the paperwork.
Okay,
Okay, since I don't have my readers and I can't read what everybody else is reading, is it itemized out what we're talking about as far as projects and where the money's gonna be spent? And it's not gonna be spent on, somebody wanted to build something brand new and they had a project and they wanted a bond to fund it.
I'm
Years
happy to
ago.
loan you these. Just gotta look at the right part.
So I just wanna make sure that we're not saying, oh, we got a nice chunk of money and now we're gonna, and it says this kind of generalized, and all of a sudden we run over here and we fund a developer's project.
This
That
is
can't
sort of
happen.
law for Texas.
No, the law, it can't happen by law.
Because that's what,
I know, it's a good concern and it's a great question.
valid.
But and there has been a lot of things put in place for that, and that's one of the reasons I really wanted to speak to some of these things, having been on the Citizens Bond Oversight Commission. It was quite a learning experience for me, going through that. The last two things that actually passed were fire stations and streets. And it was the first time I had been on a commission like that, and I didn't know what to expect. And the amount of paperwork and the amount of detail that comes for every single project, line by line by line. And if we were talking about the streets and we had some sort of overage in the streets and we needed something over in the fire stations, they couldn't cross into those categories. They're absolutely firewalled apart. As a matter of fact, it's specific to each fire station. So when we were dealing with one fire station that had some issues with it, we couldn't even grab from another fire station. It is that controlled. It really was
and is that all
amazing.
accessible to the rest of
Absolutely, and I encourage, this is what I really wanted to tell people too. When we get down to the nitty-gritty of getting this thing passed, I would encourage public participation in that. You would be incredibly impressed of the way that it's run, the amount of due diligence that is done before every conversation. They're open to the public. There was a very interesting variety of people on the oversight committee. My ears would perk up when they were talking about art installations at the fire station, because that just happens to be in my wheelhouse. Whereas some days I would be sitting there when they're talking about lane miles and they have their calculators out and they want to know that we're representing the citizens and what they voted for the amount of asphalt that was going to go down, and then they start calculating and you're, wow. But it gets down into that kind of minutia.
Well, what I'd like to say in response to your statement about how it's not equitable if we are line item, because people will just vote for their thing in the south and people in the north. But all of the money is supposed to be for the whole city, number one. And number two, I've not done this yet, but I would like to see just how equitable it is and draw a line from Shea and see how much money is actually going to be afforded to the south and to the north, to see if it is equitable and responsive to you, Steve.
We can do that.
But please keep in mind that the south of Scottsdale is going to have more needs for infrastructure improvement than much of North Scottsdale, because so much of North Scottsdale is older,
Well,
so.
then that actually helps my argument in saying that if you itemized it and if people just voted for the things and stuff, holistically, it was going to be applied to all of Scottsdale in the end result, right?
I think you're misinterpreting what was said. In living in North Scottsdale, okay, equitable does not mean equal. Okay, they're two different words, two different intents. Equitable means there are projects in the north, projects in the central, projects in the south. That's what equitability is. It's not an equal expenditure of dollars. It couldn't possibly be. I mean, an older building with old HVAC, with old electrical, old plumbing is going to take a whole lot more dollars to be remodeled and renovated and added onto, because the circuit breakers were only built to handle X amount of capacity. A newer building may cost a lot less per square foot, even though it's the same amount of square feet, because the building itself has updated plumbing, updated electric, and it can handle the additional demand where that older building may not, even though you're going to add the same number of square feet. So it's equitable by way of they're both getting the same number of square feet, but the cost would be vastly different based upon the age of the building and the needs of the physical mechanics of the building. But they're both going to be addressed in their needs.
Well, the age-old question about does development pay for itself? And so, like, you put this thing together like a mom and pop thing. You can't vote against this, you can't vote against Santa Claus the way this is done. I mean, this is just so, how could you vote against this? But isn't it interesting how it got that way? neglected, ignored, and then other needs and subsidies are given to developers, and we were always told development pays for itself, but it's not.
Can you
Well,
relate?
that's an issue separate and apart from this.
That we're,
I
You've had a
understand,
question.
hang on a second, everybody.
okay, okay.
I understand that concern. I've heard it in other places and I understand it. The issue is you're asking it of folks who are not equipped to answer it for you. We can't answer the why they did this and why they didn't do this. The city came up with this plan, and a few of us said, we think this plan is important enough that we're willing to dedicate our time, talent, and energy to getting it passed. We were not, any of us, involved. I attended one meeting, but we weren't involved in making the decisions, developer versus development, funds, this, that, and the next thing. We were handed this, and we said, this needs to fly for the sake of Scottsdale, and we are willing to work to make that happen. So, I'm afraid your question is a valid one, but we aren't the people that can answer it.
Well, I also question the people that are on the bond, because many of them have the ones that have the greatest gain through our expense by passing the bond.
Like,
Like what?
Jackson, like
what
that.
is he gain?
Well, isn't that Westworld?
Oh, God, it brings in a lot of money.
Well, and I mean, I live right across the street here, and I really wanna see
And,
South
and
Scottsdale
that,
Parks fixed
that
up. I mean,
parking area, is going to be used for.
Well, let's get that, let's cut right to the chase on that.
Yeah, okay.
If we need parking, we already own that land. We don't have to spend a penny other than to blade it flat. And if you wanna have a dirt lot, and everybody parks cars in there, that's exactly what we're gonna have if we don't pass the bond, okay? If you want it to be something nice we can use all year, we put some grass on it, and everybody through the whole city can go there. All of the soccer programs, all the lacrosse programs, from all over the city, every kid who's currently driving to Gilbert and Mesa to get a field will be able to go play in our own hometown. That's what the money is for,
Won't they be competing for the prime time?
maybe 4 weeks a year. But if we don't pass the bond, dirt lot. How do you want it? You want a dirt lot, because that's what we're gonna get. We own the land today. The bond does not buy the land. The bond does not create the parking. The bond allows the parking area to be used for athletic fields for the good of the whole city.
And it doesn't directly.
Craig Jackson
benefit
could
Craig.
care less if anybody gets to go play soccer in May. All he wants to know is get that land cleared flat so that cars can be parked for Barrett Jackson. So let's get off the notion that the fields are Craig Jackson's pet project, because he's already got what he wants. We bought the land already, we can already park it. There's 80 acres on the north side of Bell Road, the entire east side of 96th Street, from Bell Road down to Westworld, the city already owns. All we need is a road grader and we've got parking lots, okay? So don't give me we gotta have 40 million for Craig Jackson's parking lot. We need a road grader in a couple of weeks.
All right, you've had your hand up, Louise, on and off all evening.
I'll take issue with the subsidies, because years ago, when we needed to renovate, when downtown nothing was going on, and McDowell Court or all the car dealerships were leaving, yes, we did give subsidies to some of the developers, but we are no longer doing that, and Mayor Lane mentioned that at the city council meeting the other night, Patty, and you were there, so you heard that. Developers are no longer getting subsidies.
What they're no longer doing now, what about all of the times and money that was spent before?
Well, we
It's been a long time since they got the
improving-
kind of
we were improving-
subsidies that we were talking
Improving
about.
the downtown area and the McDowell
And what
area.
he
Only
says-
Nike gets those.
What he does is two different things sometimes too.
Well, but that's,
Well, how does turning down the bond request make our city better? How does that make us happy?
It gives a very important question to our city at large, that we need to be represented, the citizens need to
Then
be
we
represented.
elect new city council members in 2020, and I will work with you to get that done. But when we elect them, I want them to have enough money to rebuild our city.
we got, okay, everybody take a breath.
How much does it raise our taxes?
None.
It
Doesn't.
does not.
Now, and I'm gonna clarify that. As Paula said, the primary tax That's state, that's county, that's everything else we have absolutely no control over. The secondary, we have this itty bitty part of. And what's gonna happen for the part that Scottsdale has in that secondary, as we're selling the old bonds and they mature and they go off the rolls, this will simply replace it, but actually at a lower rate. So you may actually, again,
Okay, years
for
ago,
Scottsdale's part.
just for clarification,
Yeah.
years ago, there was a penny tax for something, a road tax or something for the state, I think. I could be wrong. It was some kind of penny, and if you voted for it, then it would just reoccur and keep on going.
I think
If
it
you
was a
didn't-
state issue.
Yeah, if you didn't vote for it, then that whole penny, that whole penny
Yeah.
would disappear.
And what happens, as these older bonds from 2000 retire, these will take their place at a lower interest rate actually. So you're gonna see a slight drop in Scottsdale's portion. Now, if the community college district bumps up their rate, we can't control that. So your actual tax bill theoretically could actually rise, but your Scottsdale portion will have dropped a little bit. So we're not causing any increase if this passes.
And of course,
Other
school bonds
entities
could
might.
also increase it.
Absolutely. And we
Yeah,
don't
but
have
those have
any
been going
control
down
over
for the last 6 years too.
Yeah,
But we don't have any.
Nothing has
control
gone
over
up for the
that.
last 6 years, everything has gone down every year.
Property values continue to rise.
right.
So don't
And
sell your
that,
house.
well, when property value rises, then your tax rate drops. Because if you only need, let's just say $1, all right, or $100, and your property value increases, well, you still only need $100. So the amount of money everyone's chipping in drops because of the value per 100. So, you know, we can't control the community college district. We can't control
Who
other
does
agencies
control the
that.
community
that
college
control-
The
district?
Maricopa County
Maricopa
Community.
County Community
Community
College.
College.
That's,
They
that's,
raise that rate without our vote? Or
yeah, they can.
Well, they have to work, there is,
Rules and guidelines?
yeah,
They're
they're
allowed
regulated,
to
they have to work
increase by
through,
a certain percentage,
yes.
okay?
That,
So-
that's cooked into the books. If they want
Exactly.
more than that, they have to go through
Exactly.
through a whole different process.
And we don't have
If-
control over that.
If I may address the concern about leadership within the city and the bonds and whether they go forward or they go down. I don't recall who was it that said, it feels like it should be Shakespeare, but it's probably Cicero or somebody, that says the perfect is the enemy of the good. That perfection is one of those things that we so chase after that sometimes we forget to look around at the good that we do have. So for whomever in the universe I have quoted or misquoted, I give apologies. But that gives me a place to jump off and to say that these bonds are about things in the city. They are about equipping leaders to get things done from a staff-driven standpoint. They start at the staff level. The staff has this list, and they work to say, you know what, the one we can get behind first and foremost is high-energy lighting someplace. You know, that'll go in easily. And that's how the list starts to percolate up. There is nothing that says they have to do every single project on here. They may get to a point where this is just, it's no longer necessary because they've done X, Y, or Z other thing. We don't know. But these projects are for the city. I would hate to be an incoming council person next year and be so behind the 8 ball with no resources to do good for my city. The current city council is gonna be in place for 1 more year. These bonds are gonna be around for a long time. The city council may look vastly different, or the citizens may reaffirm what we've got, but that will be citizen-driven. Can you imagine if you've worked hard to get elected and you walk in and you have no resources to accomplish real good in the city, it would be tough. I implore you to consider that. These are about getting things done, but the people who will lead us in getting things done will be large. There are 4 seats up for election next year, a mayor and 3 council positions. That changes the dynamic. We get a new council of whatever orientate, spectrum, wherever on the spectrum they are, but they will have the resources to fulfill the promises they make in the campaign. Otherwise,
You had another question.
Back when I was a child.
oh Lord, here we go.
Couple years ago.
Just a couple years ago.
In the 1990s. When we had Herb and Mayor Van Ross and all the other mayors in between that I can't remember right now.
One of them was my high school principal, but it's okay.
We had some beautiful
Bill
streets.
Jenkins. Bill Jenkins.
We didn't have any potholes, we didn't have any rivets, we didn't have any of this horrendous. I cringe every time they dig up the street because then they do a patchwork and then it's like, oh.
Yeah.
But our taxes, I do believe, were higher. Am I wrong?
Actually, you're probably right.
In the 90s.
Because there was a whole lot of new construction happening. Libraries, streets. And when I moved here in '76, for example, Hayden stopped at McDonald's. And McCormick Ranch was just going in. So when you look at the amount of construction the city went through, in the 90s, we're coming out of the recession from the 80s. Things were booming, which means you had to put more roadways in, there was more sewer, more water lines, and more of everything, pools. I mean, Cactus Pool is 35 years old. So when you look at that, we were really putting all of this infrastructure in, which is why taxes were higher, you had to pay for it somehow. Okay, and everything was new. Well, now, it's a couple years later, and it's not new anymore. And we haven't had the money to invest to repair. It's kind of like, what's that sound in my car? Well, I don't know, but I don't have any money to repair it now, so we're gonna ignore it. Maybe if we change the oil. Well, it's not really the oil, so that's not gonna help. And if you ignore it for too long, the mechanic's gonna tell you, congratulations, now you need the engine replaced, or the tranny replaced, or now the rear end is shot, and the ball joints are shot. And he just kind of ticks down this list, and finally you realize, I've gotta buy a new house. We've gone so far beyond repairing it, had I repaired that little dingy noise to begin with, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And unfortunately, we're down to now having to replace the engine and the transmission because we didn't have the funds to do the small repair. Cactus Pool should have had a major overhaul years ago.
Is that
Now,
also to blame on the recession?
yes, now it's beyond that. Now it's not even repairable anymore. Now we're to the point where we're gonna have to replace it. Because we didn't have the money to do the extensive repair that it needed. And, hold on just one second.
Sure.
There are some things in here where they're saving money. Now, I was on the bond task force in 2012 to 14. And back then we identified, if we replaced the lights on the ballpark playing field, within 3 years, we would have recouped all the money we spent to replace them because the operational cost was so much lower. By putting LEDs versus the conventional bulb.
Right.
I mean, the savings is unbelievable. 3 years, they would have paid for themselves.
Right.
That's been since 2012. We would have sold those bonds in 2014. And here we are 5 years later, and we've paid all that continuing money. When we could have saved and had them paid for and made money
in
in the
here
last 2
again.
years.
It's
So
in here again.
those are like no-brainers. I mean, we've done it in our homes, so we need to do it in the city.
Alright.
But we need to repair before we're totally replacing entire buildings.
Did you have a question again?
Well, yeah, the rationale sounds good, I just am questioning the direction. How much have you spent promoting this and who's paying for it?
The promotion of it, I actually do not know what our expenditures are to date, but it's being paid for by a variety of donations, both individual and corporate donations. They've come from big companies, employers, that realize the value of keeping the city up because they want to keep their employees happy in the city. It's come from professional associations, like the Firefighters Association has been behind us. And it's come from individuals who want to see it happen. It's a broad stroke. All of our contributions are a matter of public record, and they're available through the city clerk's office online.
So most of the people sitting on the bond that wrote statements for the ballot was paid for by your organization?
Our organization paid for Help Me Mary.
We paid for 23
23 statements.
Out of how many?
20,
Out of-
$2,300.
No, we paid for a little more than that.
Yeah, 2028.
We paid for more than half of them,
Yes.
I'll tell you that. And we had people both on our steering committee and private citizens who paid for their own, even though, because they serve on the steering committee, we would have been happy to pay for them as part of the political action committee. Part of that is a recognition that if you're gonna spend the time and effort that all of these folks do in their neighborhoods, going to meetings, that we could support it in that fashion, support their bond statement in that fashion.
Cox PC paid $400 to get our statement in there, and that's why I represent.
I know, I saw the sign papers and their papers.
I paid for mine.
I paid for mine.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Well, whoever did the graphic for this
Yes, sir.
needed to rethink this, because you notice the tagline is improve and repair. But all of your statements pretty much say, and the way Mr. Norton put it rather bluntly, let's say aliens come to Earth and they say everyone's going to vote no, regardless of what your feeling is, 100% no. Wouldn't it make sense where everyone would say, okay, we know this is a possibility. So if we don't get parking, if we don't get these multi-purpose fields, we're just going to have bladed dirt. Would it have made more sense, instead of a mechanic here trying to dig into her new car, or is the mechanic looking at some poor old lady with an empty purse saying, we've broken everything and we either do this or you don't have a car? Because like the argument for the cactus pool is, we just can't keep on fixing it. Well, how come you guys don't say, look, the cactus pool has an estimated cost of whatever, but we know the real cost for the city is every year we spend X amount. So what do you want to spend it on? It's like the whole thing with the lights. Do you want to spend continually this amount for this?
We can get you that information, and I've been talking about that in
We've been
detail.
talking about it on social media. And
I'd be very happy to get
ways.
you, if you'll just do me a favor and fill out one of those follow-ups. So we have a reminder. We'll go pull the information on the operating costs and the repair histories on that pool and give you a comparative analysis. I'd like to do that for you.
If you'll notice, the headline above is why there's a mechanic. It's time to have a tune-up.
Well, it's more than tune-up, because the way you're describing things is not a tune-up. A tune-up is what we've been doing. We're going to patch the pool. You can't tune up the pool to the point where you can't tune it up anymore. Because unless the city says, look, we're going to have to close the cactus pool because we can't make it, safe and operational, we need to get a bond to redo it.
Okay.
Now, if the city's saying no, that's not, we're not saying that. We're simply saying this right now is a great opportunity to improve this, to give us an asset. So why, it's not, I speak to a lot of people and they feel that all of you people up there on the committee, regardless of how it grows and shrinks, there's no trust. And some of us,
This group here did not make the bond.
no, I understand that. They didn't make, they're part and parcel with it. This is the whole thing. It's like, you can't say you're German during World War II and say, well, I'm not a Nazi. And people are going to say, well, but you're in Germany. And, the whole thing is that with social media and everything else, people are not going to,
I don't expect you to trust me. I expect you to ask me for the data, and I'm going to get it to you, and then you make up your own mind. I'm not here to tell you what the data says. I'm here to help you find the data so that each of you can make up your own mind. You're all smart enough to look at the data and make up your own mind. but it's very difficult to go find it all. And we've done all the work we can to accumulate data so that we can give you the links to the information, and you yourselves can go do the research and make up your own mind.
Thank
You know, you're not here to elect Dana,
Correct.
okay? You're here to determine whether or not we should all agree to spend some money to improve our own town. And that's a decision that you're gonna make based on real data, hard facts, and we're here to get those to you, and I want to get that information to you so that you can study it and you can make up your mind. I don't want to tell you what to think. I want you to go think, and I want you to
Plus,
make
if
up
we
your
don't
mind.
like it later, we can argue in 2 years when
We-
Yeah, I'd like to add to that too, you know, there's nobody even sitting at this table who thinks that this is just the end-all, be-all perfect. The perfect branding, the perfect selection of product, I mean, I myself, even as a person on this bond, I look at that we're going to improve Paiute, the Paiute Center. Well, I love that place. I love mid-century architecture. I do the mid-century modern home tour. I don't want to see these kinds of things torn down, so I'll be keenly aware of when that's being discussed and making sure that we keep as much of that as we possibly can. But, you know, at some point, someone has to organize this. Someone has to build a campaign. Someone has to get a group of people together to come and talk to you or to answer questions or provide information or charts and graphs or things from the city treasurer so that you can make your own decision. And the other thing I would say about this particular group of people is there was effort made on the part of the committee that put this together to get a completely different group of people. We were on different sides of issues with Prop 420. We were on different sides of issues. We're from north and from south. I live right across the street. Copper lives way up north. So there was an effort to bring people who were on opposite sides of other issues. Because what we're trying to do is make it so that it's not about us, and we're trying to bring things together cohesively. So some of you may really not like me, but you might like copper. But at the end of the day, it's not about us. It's about our city. It's about our city. You know, a lot of lengths went to get people to come together to create these things. Did everybody get 100% of what they want? No. But did we create something really good that we can go for to make our city better? The same is true when we get our mail-in ballots with the SUSD. I hear this a lot too. I mean, we need to pass that. We're here to talk about the city bond, I realize, but you know, the SUSD budget override is coming up as well. And I hear things on social media about, well, I don't like that woman that's on that committee. It's like, it's got nothing to do with that woman and everything to do about our public schools and the fact that if we don't pass that override, they lose $19 million. So you can not like her all day long, but pretty soon that campaign will be over, she'll be on her way, and we still lose $19 million to our schools.
It's
So
really
we're
a lack
all
of
gonna go
trust.
away too.
It really bottom line.
I get it, but we're not
Jason
controlling
Rose
the
is
money.
not somebody I admire. or
What's that?
trust. Jason Rose.
I understand, but Jason Rose isn't gonna control these monies.
No, but
The
he's the
voters
one
are.
that put your bond together, your bond committee together.
No, Paula
Well, I know, but what
No,
would you
it's
suggest?
not.
No, let's get
I
this
thought
really
he
clear.
did.
Paula Sturgeon and I created that political action committee, okay? We
Okay.
met with a lot of people and we asked people to join. We asked people to join, now Paula and I were about
Total
as fierce
opposites.
of an opposition of each other as you can be, but we both believe in the bond. You know, what we thought about that whole project is one issue, but what we think about where our city goes next year and what we need, we're on the same page, totally on the same page.
Why is his name so prominent about this?
Because he was brought in to help raise funds and to run the public relations campaign. That's his purpose. You know,
We
you know, I
refer,
mean, when was the last time, I mean, you know, we were all on the other side of the DDC issue, right? You know, I mean, I can now go sit and talk with Mayor Lane. I can now sit and talk with city council members. I can ask them, how can we influence the package as we go forward? Because they've gotten over the fact that I was on the opposite side of the issue 2 years ago, okay? I believe in the bonds. I believe it's absolutely in the best interest of the city. And I'm willing to shake hands with people that were my foe 2 years ago because we need to get something done for our town right now. And, you know, we've gotten past that in a lot of areas of town. And I hope that we can get past that even more as we go forward, because it's not about anybody sitting here, it's not about an
It's not
individual
about
human
us.
being,
No,
it's about
it's not about
how is our city gonna work for us in 4 years? If we don't like the condition it's in now and we don't pass a bond, what are we gonna think about our town in 4 years? I mean, is getting even with city council, is that worth enough to let our town deteriorate even?
And that city council's gonna be gone.
They won't even be here.
It's more also about reviewing the budget and prioritizing it in a different manner so that it reflects the citizen.
Okay, but tell me what voting
And
yes or no
not-
on the bond has to do with that?
Pardon?
What does voting yes or no on the bond have to do with what you just said?
It's a statement to say, to tell the city council that we don't like who you are or what you're doing, and
I
you're not
agree.
representing us.
I agree, and in 2020, I will work with you on that issue.
I don't want you to.
But in 2019, I want to work on this issue, because right now, we really badly need money. And right now is the most opportune moment in my history in Scottsdale to issue bonds at the lowest rates we've ever
It's the only
seen.
leverage we have.
But Patty, it's gonna be a totally different council. It'll be 4 different people on
Where's
council.
the leadership? Please tell me who
Mike's
this is
running,
going to
let's
be.
get him in.
No.
Are you still running,
No.
Mike?
If I have to.
No.
I don't
But
want to.
it's going to be a completely different council, so you can't make a referendum on a future council that we don't even know who it is. What we have to do is make sure we elect the people that you believe in. But you can't punish the future of our city because you
It's
don't
not-
like the past
We've
government.
been punished, plenty, by the
But-
direction and
So
how.
let's quit punishing ourselves.
It's
Okay,
apples and
wait.
oranges.
Everybody,
Stop.
Yeah, it's time.
we are talking about the future. All of us come into this discussion today with a lot of different experiences. Copper says she moved here when the city went to McDonald. It didn't go north of Camelback when I was a kid. And Schrader's Farm was where we hung out, and Larry Schrader sat right next to me in high school biology. I had such a crush on him. I wish he'd have listened. But there's a lot that has happened in our town. A lot of good and a lot of not so good.
What, can you name some not so good? Just to.
I think the not so good I would call the disintegration of trust between citizens and leaders.
How to get that way?
I think it comes from a variety of places, and I think that we have had leaders who wouldn't listen and citizens who wouldn't listen. It takes 2 to tango.
I'll take that
I-
one
I
step
will-
further.
hang
I
on.
think we were apathetic as citizens. I think we quit
Yes, I
paying
think that's
attention.
true too.
We weren't
Uninformed majority
engaged,
is
and a lot
right.
of things went
Yes,
sideways.
I think that's true.
But I think we need to hold ourselves accountable for the fact that we were not involved.
All right.
But I'm looking at people sitting right here who have been deeply involved for a long time and make me feel ashamed about the fact years ago. And I accept responsibility for the fact I didn't pay attention and things went sideways because I was an apathetic voter.
Well, Mike, I need to sort of finish my question. What I'm trying to say is to avoid a personality thing, and the thing which Patty seems to just coming back to, is that like Dana Close, you said, okay, I love, Paiute, okay? So you guys meet together and it's like, hey Dana, would you mind working with Mike, because the city put Paiute up there for a reason, right? They didn't simply say, oh, we're gonna pick a spot on the map, and oh cool, Paiute's close to there, we're gonna pick this. Now it's like Paiute needs the following, and there's numbers attached to it. Now the whole thing of, hey, go dig to the city for it, doesn't really work, because what would work is that you can do like, say, a 30-second video or something where you do a narration. It's like the Paiute Center needs X, Y, and Z. Here's the information what we need. It's like, if it passes, we can possibly get this, because when they propose this, yes, this is going to happen, no, this will happen.
Yeah.
And then just give the facts, because of this whole list, if that was done, I think more people would be able to say, okay, yes, now we do need a multi-purpose thing because we don't have a dirt parking lot.
Well, we've got 6 weeks till ballots get mailed out. So if we're looking at the amount of those types of presentations we could make in that time, we're not going to do 58. So what are the most controversial you would like to see us address those types of questions? Because we'll go do it. We'll get it for you, and we'll give you the links so that you can check our data.
But
Because
see,
we don't want you to believe us. We want you to believe the real data.
it's interesting that it always has to come from, we have to be the forward action to show our trust and our commitment with our money, and then maybe they will comply and do something back for us.
I'm not sure who you mean by we and they.
I have no
Yeah,
idea
what's
what
we
you're
and
talking
they?
about.
Who's we?
I'm talking about the citizens here of Scottsdale, what, the people that I talk to, I'm representing, I'm not just talking about myself here. I'm talking about a lot of people who are terribly upset with the height and density that's going on with this town.
The bonds aren't gonna affect.
And
I'm one of
us.
them,
Pardon?
and I'm one of them.
I know, and so is
But
Sonny, and
this
so
has-
is your board, but I don't know
This
what.
has absolutely nothing to do with that.
But see, it's a lack of trust that we have. Why should, they're putting all their money to help facilitate all of this growth,
What she's doing is
and
she's
it's
saying,
not sustainable. We're not sustainable here.
she
and I
doesn't
don't
wanna
think
give
this
the
isn't gonna
city
fix it.
council money when they haven't
this
addressed her
is-
concerns.
But you know
So
what?
what do we do?
That's cutting off your nose to spite
Yeah, I
your
know,
face.
that's what Linda Milhaven said.
And, oh my God, I'm so sorry I said that.
I'm sorry, yeah, thank you. She said,
Mary Milhaven's a wonderful servant.
That's
They
good.
are all wonderful servants of this town. You agree with them, you disagree with them, but they work hard.
who's they?
Nancy
The
has.
city
Anybody-
council members, Nancy, please.
What you don't like is what we as citizens have to do. That's our job. We live in a representative democracy.
Yes, ma'am.
Without our voice, it won't work. The complacency he spoke of, yeah, that makes it not work. If you don't walk up and ask questions, for God's sake, ask questions. Always. If you don't ask those questions. You remember when you went up to help your daughter get ready for school to start at Cherokee and you were appalled
Yeah.
at the condition of her
Terrible.
classroom.
Like a third world country over there in Paradise.
How did it get that way?
Yeah, how did it get that way?
Nobody opened their mouth. Nobody said a thing. I jumped back into things in the school district, and I'm not mixing them, but I jumped back in because there were questions and there were gaping holes. You can't solve a problem unless you speak up and discuss. If you have a house and you don't maintain your house, at the end of 20 years, you don't have a real good house.
Well, the city has been ignored and neglecting a whole bunch of stuff, now they're putting it on the backs of us.
You know, we're going around in that circle over and
Yeah.
over. We did not ignore it, we did not neglect it. We've had these projects on the list for a long time, and we did not have funding.
The last
This is the
bond
question
that
of saying,
passed.
gee, I don't think I want to worry about that project.
We didn't have a
We
bonding
didn't have money.
program.
Well, why isn't that in your documentation though? That's what I'm saying.
It is.
It is.
But where, the thing is, like, here's the big,
There's a website and there's a Facebook page that include those financial discussions. I will send them to you.
yeah, because the whole thing is,
I will send them to you.
because if you truly want to, avoid the hearts and minds things like, oh, I hate Mike, or I hate Dana, or, I love this
Yep.
person, I hate that person, it's
Yep.
more like,
I
when
agree.
when the city came up with this list, you guys should be able to say, it's like, okay, hey, I'm Mike Norton, I really want to deal with the multi-use thing. And you should be able to speak to, employee X, and they're gonna say, yep, I'm the one who put it up there because here's the
You lost
information.
me. What is the multi-use thing? I don't get it.
The fields, yeah, the fields or parking lot.
What about it?
When did you want Mike to say, would you back up and just
Okay.
retrace that for a minute, because I lost you.
Okay, you guys come together, it's like, we need to pass this bond because we have this huge list, it's broken into these 3 categories, we now need to sell it. So, like Mike one day is gonna say, you know what, the multi-use field parking soccer extravaganza, whatever you wanna call it, is on this list. Okay, you have a great relationship with Mayor Lane or whoever.
It's not great, but it's workable.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So you have this relationship and you say, this is part of question X. Where's the information for it? Because the city should be able to tell you, they should be able to find some employee somewhere saying, hey, look, we propose this because of these reasons. It shouldn't be Mike Norton discovers them. It should be the city says, here, Mike, let's say the bond is 150 questions. Here's a big old Bible of stuff, boom, you divvy it up and you guys give the information away. Because if the city can't give you and you're trying to help them that information, then you're sort of shooting yourself in the foot, because then people are going, it's like, well, I don't like what Mike is saying, and what Mike should be able to say is like, love it.
Okay, I didn't want
love-
to cut you off, but
Yeah.
I'm going to.
Yeah.
The city has created a website that shows every one of the projects. It states very specifically in it that those athletic fields will also be parking lots and that they'll
Can
be
you
used
write
for.
that webs?
What?
Can you write?
City of Scottsdale, www.scottsdale.gov.
ScottsdaleAZ.gov.
No,
Yeah.
we know that.
Bond
Search
projects.
Search
Search
Bond
bond
projects.
project.
Yes,
In the
And then it'll
search
give
bar.
us the itemized.
yes. And you get a
Just
little
like-
visual of every one. As you
Little
scroll through
visual.
it, you see a little visual. It shows you where the lot is. It pops up on one side and it says, this is where this project is. You can see it on the map, you can see a description
Everybody
of it.
got that?
Huh?
Yeah, I got it.
Well,
Yeah.
so I'm making sure the audience
No,
understands.
we'll publicize that again. If it's not public enough, absolutely, we're going to do that.
I am recording voiceovers for videos that are gonna be launched for several of the different projects. Mike and I have done one together, others will be doing those. Just because you haven't seen as vast a campaign to date, doesn't mean that it isn't coming.
Oh, I'll bet it is.
It is our intention, as our signs go up in accordance with the city ordinance on the 6th of September, that the campaign will go into high gear, and there will be more presentations, more videos, more media, more Facebook postings. There are tons of those things out there, both on our website, the city website, our Facebook page, and the like. We're not asking everyone to agree with every project. We are asking you to give them your consideration, to call on us if we can be of assistance in pointing you where to find the information. We are not the experts in detail.
I find it interesting that you have to work that hard at it. That shows the mistrust right there.
We have to work that hard at it because we are committed to not letting bonds go down again like they have in the past.
And why did they in the past?
There was a recession. I mean, for God's sakes. When we voted the last time, we were,
No.
a lot of us were unemployed. A lot of us were losing our
The last time we voted
houses.
though was in 2015.
Yeah, and so, yes.
But
If
once
you think
again,
the recession was over with when we voted, you're wrong. You're wrong. We were coming out of it, but people were still losing homes.
You're operating at.
Okay, let me go back. I want to take away from this conversation. You're asking for some cost-benefit analysis on some projects. And I'm not gonna wait until we get everything else done. I'm gonna get those for you, and you wanted to see the pool analysis?
Yeah, because all those things should be just, there's
Well, I
some.
can't do all those things because there's only like 6 weeks left and there's 58 projects.
Well,
So,
no, I understand.
what are the ones that are important to you? And I will get that to you.
Okay.
But tell me the ones that are most important. What's top on your priority list? The pool?
I would say the pool, the senior centers.
Okay.
Now, see,
And-
that's my bailiwick. I'm
Okay.
focusing on the senior.
And
Would you want to see an analysis on the fields?
yeah, I mean, it doesn't need to be just like, John Q. PhD gave this dissertation. It's more like,
Here's the data.
yeah, we need to do this because otherwise, A, it's going to be dirt or it's going to be this. So
Yeah.
what do you want? And there's going to be information for both. So it's like, if you want to do dirt, well then, heck, you can say dirt's fine.
Yeah.
But, don't make the dirt pay for something
All right,
else.
we got one more question here, and then we're looking like wrap-up, sleepy eyes. Yes, ma'am.
One of the things, they're all here, and they're probably all needed. My problem is I've been here 61 years,
God bless you.
and I've seen everything. And one of the things that each one of these could be an example. But my big problem over all these years is they fix and grade the streets and they're beautiful and it's like Thomas Road, great and beautiful, and now the end of it is full of crap.
Yeah.
And I have gotten over the years, I've gotten up in front of the council and said, when you do a damn road, put everything in it, the garbage, the sewer, the water, the electricity. How
Yeah.
hard can that be?
Girl, you're preaching to the choir. I think we would all say amen to that. Amen to that. Listen, the bottom line is, and we're a titch repetitive, but I want to close it this way. You don't need to like or trust any one of us. The cold hard data is out there. We signed on because we thought the project had value. We engaged staff because we are not pros in running a political action committee. We needed help, and we got it. And when we talk, we refer to them as staff. When we have our call-in questions, we say, from the staff perspective, how will this work? We are a team doing the best we can to cover the city. If there is a place you need us to be, reach out and we'll be there. If there is someone specific off the steering committee that you want to have there, let us know. We'll make sure you get that person, or at least that person and one other. We want to be a service to you and to our city in saying, please consider these bonds. Not because we asked you, not because the city council asked you, but because it's for the best for Scottsdale. Let's make Scottsdale once again the little shiny penny that it was, I'll bet, 60 years ago. And with that, oh, yes, Miss Nancy.
I was just gonna say thank you all for coming and doing this. And so this group knows, I'm gonna vote for all three questions. Like my house.
Nancy, thank you very much.
I have to take out a home equity loan in order to do all the work that needs to be done, to put in the copper pipes that weren't there, to run the correct sewer lines that weren't there, to put that roof on that used to be shake shingle. It was very dangerous. All of those things need to be done. You cannot do it without spending some money. This is where I live. I'm willing to spend that money on where I live. Like we talked about the schools, and I'm voting for that too. We must maintain these things. And I know over the years here, it's been very hard. We live in a very rough climate. Building buildings, Paiute. I love Paiute. It's right across the street from me. I love Paiute. But it needs work. I know what the infrastructure on that building is, like I know what the infrastructure is on every school in Scottsdale. And it all needs work. It all needs to be replaced to be safe.
Yeah.
And to allow our children to learn, to allow our community to grow. For my great-grandchild who just started preschool, it's all really important. And I will support it. Now, the trust issue, I understand that. You remember, I served on boards and commissions for 32 years. I understand. I am frustrated. If you watch what I wrote in the newspaper, you know my frustrations. I work on the general plan for 6.5 years. And it's still sitting on the shelf.
Yeah.
That's not a good feeling. But the only way I'm gonna get it moved is to keep refocusing attention on it. And to keep talking and to keep pointing out what needs to be done. That's what has to be. Nobody ever told us living in a representative democracy was gonna be easy. It's not. But every citizen has to play a part. And whether it's asking questions, going to a meeting and listening, you ask great questions. You take great notes. But it takes a lot of time to make sure that it all comes together. And you can't, I hate to say this, you can't rest on your laurels. You gotta keep at it. So, thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you very much.
But
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for the banana bread.
You can take them with you
That
if
was
you
so
want.
good. That's exactly the way my grandma. Yes, yes.